Hey streamers, welcome back to Streamer's Guide. There's big news today. Amazon just confirmed it's stepping up its crackdown on piracy-related apps across Fire TV devices. Starting right now, some users are already seeing messages that certain side-loaded apps won't work or have been removed. And this time, it's not just the App Store getting cleaned up. Amazon is actually blocking them at the device level. In this video, we'll break down what changed, what hasn't changed, and what you can safely keep using without running into issues. So grab your remote and let's get into what Amazon's really doing behind the scenes. So here's what really happened. Amazon has now confirmed that it's enforcing a new device level block on Fire Sticks. That means it's not just about what's listed or delisted inside the App Store anymore. This update can actually prevent certain side-loaded apps from opening, even if you've already installed them yourself. The change started quietly in Europe, mainly in France and Germany, where users began seeing pop-up messages saying an app will no longer work because it violates Amazon's terms. Those same users soon noticed the icons disappearing from their Fire TV menus altogether. Amazon says the rollout will expand worldwide in stages over the coming months. Now, the important detail here is how Amazon decides what to block. They're partnering with the Alliance for Creativity and Entertainment, the big anti-piracy group that represents studios like Disney, Netflix, and Warner Bros. Ace, supplies a list of apps that are considered to provide access to pirated content, and Amazon cross-checks that list against what's installed on your Fire TV. If there's a match, the system marks it as unsafe and disables it remotely. According to Amazon's statement, the reason isn't just copyright protection. They're also citing security risks. They claim some of these side-loaded apps can carry malware or track user data, and that blocking them is part of a customer protection measure. Whether that's the full story or not, this is the official line we've got. What makes this different from past purges is that this one's built into the firmware. It doesn't matter where you downloaded the APK, whether it's through Downloader, a file manager, or even pushed over ADB. Once the system recognizes a flagged package name, it won't run. And to be clear, this also applies to older Fire TV models running Fire OS 7 or Fire OS 8, not just the new Vega OS devices. Vega OS, of course, doesn't even allow sideloading in the first place. But this enforcement brings a similar lock to the traditional Fire OS side of things. So yes, the sideloading door is technically still there, but Amazon now decides what's allowed through it. Stick around, because in the next part we'll go over what hasn't changed, and that's where things get a bit more reassuring for everyday users. Now, before everyone starts thinking the Fire Stick just became a lockdown brick, let's clear up what hasn't changed. First, sideloading itself isn't gone, at least not on standard Fire OS devices. You can still install Downloader, transfer an APK manually, or use a file manager like you always have. The key difference is that Amazon is now filtering which apps can actually launch once they're on the device. So while you can sideload, the system quietly decides what's allowed to run. Second, none of this affects official streaming apps. Everything you normally use, Prime Video, Netflix, Disney+, YouTube, Pluto TV, Tubi, Plex, Streamio, all still open just fine. Amazon's new enforcement isn't touching apps from the official App Store or those verified through Play Protect style checks. Third, if you're sideloading legitimate tools like media players, backup utilities, file explorers, or launchers, those are still operating normally as long as they're not on Amazon's flagged list. The system isn't blocking apps for being unknown sources, it's blocking specific package names identified as piracy distributors. Fourth, the block currently applies only to Fire TV class devices, Fire Sticks, Cubes, and televisions running Fire OS. Your Android TV, Google TV, or NVIDIA Shield remain unaffected because those run different ecosystems entirely. If you're using a Chromecast with Google TV, for instance, you can still sideload whatever you like there. And one more thing that often gets misunderstood, this isn't a retroactive account ban or an attempt to track you personally. Amazon isn't disabling devices or suspending Prime accounts over sideloaded apps. They're just preventing specific apps from being executed locally. Once you remove the blocked app, the system functions normally. In other words, what Amazon's doing is more like sealing a few doors in the hallway rather than locking the whole building. In the next part, we'll look at how these new restrictions actually appear on your screen and what kind of warnings or pop-ups to expect before an app gets blocked. All right, let's talk about what this actually looks like when it happens. because for a lot of people, that first pop-up was quite a surprise. The moment you try to open one of the apps that's been flagged, a warning screen appears. It usually says something like, "This app is not authorized to run on Fire TV," or "This app violates Amazon's terms and will be removed." You can click OK, but after that, the app either refuses to launch or disappears entirely from your apps list. In some regions, Amazon is rolling this out in 2 stages. Stage 1 shows only a warning, basically a heads up saying the app might stop working soon. Then, after a few days or after the next system check-in, the app becomes completely disabled. Users in France and Germany were the first to see this, and some UK users started noticing it in the last few days. On older Fire TV sticks, it might just say app not responding or app can't be opened, but underneath, that's the same block being triggered, the system quietly removing permissions for that package. What's interesting is that this isn't something you can undo with a reboot or a factory reset. Even after wiping the stick, the moment you reconnect to the internet, the Fire TV revalidates your apps against Amazon's list and reinforces the block automatically. Some people tried workarounds like changing DNS or sideloading through ADB, but early reports show that those methods don't get past the new system level check. It's not a network block, it's a firmware flag. And just to be clear, this doesn't affect normal, legal sideloaded apps. If you open something like VLC, Kodi without piracy add-ons, or a launcher you downloaded from a clean source, those continue to open normally for now. The system is targeting the specific packages associated with piracy feeds, so if you suddenly see an app vanish or refuse to launch, that's not a glitch. That's Amazon's new enforcement doing its job. Coming up next, we'll dig into why Amazon's doing this now, and what's pushing this bigger shift toward tighter control of the Fire TV ecosystem. So the question a lot of people are asking right now is, why now? For years, sideloading on Fire Sticks has been an open secret. Amazon knew people were doing it, and for the most part, they didn't interfere. You could install whatever APKs you wanted as long as you enabled apps from unknown sources, but that tolerance seems to be ending. The timing here isn't random. Over the past year, the Alliance for Creativity and Entertainment, that's the same group representing Netflix, Disney, Amazon Studios, Paramount, and dozens of others, has stepped up pressure on hardware makers to take a more active role in piracy prevention. They've been going after illegal app developers, IPTV sellers, and even social media accounts promoting fully loaded Fire Sticks. In fact, Amazon's official statement references protecting customers from harmful or unsafe content sources. But if you read between the lines, this is also about maintaining relationships with major content providers. The same studios that supply content for Prime Video are also pushing for stricter protection across devices. There's also a strategic side to this. Amazon's ecosystem is evolving. The new Vega OS, which is replacing Fire OS on some models, is built from the ground up to be a closed system. No sideloading, nor APK installs, or developer options. It's the same direction Apple and some smart TV manufacturers have taken. So what we're seeing now could be the transition phase, getting Fire OS users used to the tighter rules before everything shifts to Vega. And there's a business motivation too. Amazon wants to push users toward App Store downloads and Prime integrated apps, where they have more control, analytics, and in some cases, revenue sharing. Every sideloaded app that streams outside of that system represents both a security unknown and a financial leak. Combine all of that, legal pressure, ecosystem control, and business strategy, and you can see why this enforcement started rolling out in late 2025. It's not a sudden crackdown, it's a calculated move that's been building behind the scenes for months. Coming up next, we'll talk about what you can do going forward, how to keep your device useful, safe, and flexible, even as these new restrictions roll out. Don't forget to take a second to hit the like button for more deep dives and news updates like this one. So where does that leave regular Fire Stick users like us? First off, don't panic. If your Fire Stick still works fine today, it'll keep working. What's changing is more about which apps Amazon allows to function, not the device itself. You won't lose access to your regular apps, your Prime Video, or your favorite streaming services. Second, if you rely on sideloading for legitimate reasons, like installing tools for media servers, file transfer, or alternate launchers, stick with trusted sources. Use APK Mirror, GitHub, or the developer's own site whenever possible. Avoid sketchy app stores or those Firestick build bundles that claim to include dozens of channels. That's the kind of thing a CE is targeting. Third, keep your Fire TV software updated, even if this news feels frustrating. I know some users are tempted to block updates, but that can create bigger issues down the line. Compatibility bugs, app crashes, even loss of access to streaming platforms that need security patches. If you really value full sideloading freedom, this might be a good time to look beyond Fire TV. Devices like the Rocktech GX1 with Google TV, NVIDIA Shield, or Google TV Streamer still give you more open access for third-party apps while staying certified for streaming. But if you're sticking with Firestick, you're not out of options. You can still enjoy all the major streaming services, and many of the free legal movie and TV apps are perfectly fine to use. I'll link a few trusted alternatives in the description below that won't trigger any blocks. And here's something important to keep in mind. Even though sideloading's under the spotlight, Fire OS isn't shutting it down completely yet. You can still install apps outside the App Store if they're clean and not flagged. So that's where things stand right now. Amazon's not taking away your Fire Stick, but they're definitely tightening the ropes. Some of the freedom we used to have with sideloading is starting to shrink, and this update is proof that more changes are on the way. The good news? You can still enjoy your favorite apps, still customize your setup, and still keep streaming without issues, as long as you stick with clean, trusted sources and stay up to date. And that's exactly why we're here. Streamer's Guide will keep tracking every new Fire TV and Vega OS update, so you always know what's safe, what's changing, and what to avoid. If you found this breakdown useful, drop a like to help it reach more Firestick users, and make sure you're subscribed. I'll post follow-ups as soon as the next round of updates rolls out. Until next time, stream safe, stay sharp, and I'll see you in the next one.